What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing a 3-round mock draft. It's going to be split up into 2 different days, just like the NFL draft. Day 1 is going to be round 1, day 2 is going to be rounds 2 and 3, but it's going to feature trades. And if you see a 3-round mock draft that is under an hour and with trades, especially with trades, don't click on the video. I mean, you can do it, have some fun, see some new names, but if you guys actually want to hear something with some legitimate analysis, and again, my analysis might not be perfect, but I'll still give it to you. This is the place to be. Don't click on those short videos because they just want you there to grub up that cash. For me, I want to be able to have a good time with you guys. We're here to sit back, relax, and have an informative time. Below my face is my board. It's based off of my all 22 grades, so some of these are still being updated for 2024. Because I don't have things like True Media, PFF Ultimate, but I do everything I do with what I have. So the moment I get games with these players, I update them. But this is based, the majority of these guys are now fully updated. So I'm super excited for that. Below that are great ways to get involved in the community. Use that link tree because it's 2 clicks away from doing everything you want. But let's get into this. You guys can, of course, give me feedback. I always say be a dick, just don't be a dick about it. Let's get on with it. Some exciting things coming our way too that I can't talk about yet, but maybe Thanksgiving time, we can unveil some of the new projects that I'm going to be unveiling to the show. But starting at pick number 1 for the New England Patriots, it's a great spot to be in because I think that the opportunity exists to where you can get arguably the best corner core in the NFL or the top corner duo with Will Johnson as well as Christian Gonzalez. However, I really do want to emphasize the need for offensive tackle on this squad. Surprisingly, unfortunately, is the week that the 2 rookies, Robinson as well as Wallace, did not play. The line appeared to be a little bit better. Like, you got some hope there. And I mean, to be fair, Brissett did not end up making it beneficial. However, I do think that this team is in need of a legitimate left tackle. To me, Caden Wallace, the vision for him is a dream guard. Super athletic, has some issues when it comes to counters and stuff. I don't like him in open space. So for me, that's when I fell in love with him. He was my guy, primarily at guard. So left tackle, still a position I think is a long-term need. I'm not taking one here at 1. I think there's a couple players that are worth the number 1 overall pick. That's going to be Will Johnson. I mean, it's pretty much just Will Johnson at this point. But you got guys like Will Campbell as well, who I really do like. However, I just can't select Will Campbell at number 1. His arm length does not suggest that he is a guaranteed tackle. However, I personally believe in him to be one. And because he's maybe someone, I mean, Penei Sewell had 32-inch arms, right? Like there's some certain discrepancies to where, yes, you can certainly be an exception. But the rule overall is that you have some insecurity. And if I have some insecurity, I'm not taking you at 1, but I might take you elsewhere. That elsewhere is out of the first overall pick with a trade. And I thought about this one. This is a live mock draft, but, I ended up, don't tell my boss, in a meeting, ended up making a mock draft on paper. And I actually like this idea because there's a couple teams that I do think can sacrifice a little bit more to fill a need with massive value, i.e. Will Johnson. And a team that really is struggling, in my opinion, in the boundary corner room and has yet to adjust and address it is the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can talk about the Rams because the Rams are willy-nilly in terms of setting picks. But for me, my goal is for the Patriots, I'd be willing to take a discount to still get the player I'd select at 1, which is Will Campbell, and be able to still get some extra draft capital without risking it like I would if I had the Browns in my way. So I'm going to be making a move here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is going to take 2026 draft capital, which PFF doesn't allow. So I would say it's a 2nd-round pick in 2026. Now, you could end up adjusting it here, or maybe send the 3rd round in 2026. You send like Minnesota's pick. Do that own math on your own. Like for me, I'm going to say it's a first this year, it's number 3, and a next year 2nd to move up to here. I'd be willing to take that trade in a 2nd if I'm the Patriots because I'm getting the exact same player that I would select, but I'm getting a free pick from it. So continuing here, we got the Jaguars moving up for Will Johnson, the position I really thought they needed to draft last year and they neglected. So hoping now that you get Tyson Campbell, Will Johnson there, 2 very physical corners with, honestly, relatively solid ball skills. I know Will Johnson is no Travis Hunter in that category, but let's continue. Starting at pick number 2, there's a couple routes that you can go here. You got Mason Graham because defensive interior pressure, not a bad idea. However, Trey Hendrickson has had his issues with his contract. Also, edge rush has been relatively inconsistent. I don't think that it's out of the question to go after an edge rusher here. In the second round, you can certainly move up for an edge in the late first, but I know myself. And I think the NFL knows how the NFL would draft, so I'm going to try to apply that same logic here. I think Nick Skelton's coming back, or Scorton, excuse me. He's coming back with a vengeance. He had a pretty slow start to the year. That game versus Missouri was not a 65 defensive grade. Let's be honest. Anybody who watched that game, this guy was consistently in the backfield, consistently making plays. I think he's absolutely awesome. And he was my, number 3, maybe number 4 player in the draft coming into the year. And he added some extra weight. So yeah, there's an adjustment period for that. He added, I think, 10 or 15 pounds. I mean, hell, if you and I added 10 or 15 pounds, we'd have a little bit longer than a couple week adjustment period. So I honestly think that this dude is an absolute baller. And I know based off of my drafting philosophy, based on the guys who are available in this class, which there's not many first round quality players, take the ones that you know are going to make an impact early and often. This fits their exact style as well. And you could say, hey, let's move down as well. You actually do put yourself at risk of being able to have them get sniped, because I personally think there's not many defensive linemen, especially the edge rushers in this class, that have both size and capability. Nick Skelton is the perfect blend of the two. At number 3 for the New England Patriots, we moved down and we're happy. You know what? Let's not play any games any further. We are going to be going after Will Campbell here. I do believe in him as a left tackle. I know that it's not 33-inch arms. I already made my spiel earlier, but I ended up taking the risk on with, I think regardless, he's going to be a high quality guard at the very, very minimum. But I really do think he can work as a left tackle. And his struggles versus South Carolina, which my grade does encapsulate how he performed versus South Carolina, is actually pertaining to wide 9. I thought he's just a little bit uncomfortable with something that was brand new. And you know what? I'm very curious to see the next time he faces a team that runs a lot of wide 9, has he learned? And if he has, awesome. If he didn't, then you have some questions. Javon Foster, for example, speaking of the Jaguars, was a player that I was very high on, but I saw him make the same mistake week after week after week. And that's why I was a little bit lower on him in the end, but I digress. At number 4 for the Cleveland Browns, you're going to be losing 2 star players in this in your receiving core, right? And technically Nick Chubb as well. He's up for a contract, but Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, up for a contract. Now the question comes down to this. Do you want to go Ashton Genty or do you want to go Travis Hunter as a receiver? I think we all know the answer to that. Let's go Travis Hunter here. I think that Travis Hunter is an absolute baller. Yes, he can definitely play that cornerback position if you want him to. I think that he's just not going to want to. And James Foster came on the show, A to Z Sports. He ended up talking about this past week. And I thought it was actually a really, really good back and forth because he has him coming out as a corner. But the idea is your dream is for him to play corner. The problem that I always think of is wide receiver 23, cornerback 4, paid the same. Just the money talks. And if I'm going to be honest, playing offense, a little bit more fun than playing defense, because if you suck on one play as a defender, you look like a bum. If you're really great on one play as a receiver, people start being like, man, there's some potential there. It's just funny how it's flipped like that. Action versus reaction positions. And I think Travis Hunter absolutely can play both. I don't think that the NFL playbooks are small enough to be able to handle both. And I think that when you can't take a play off or have a bad rep in the NFL, having the fatigue of playing both, not going to work. But in certain situations, like maybe on third down and long, where it's a passing situation, you put Travis Hunter as a defensive back, brilliant. For this team specifically, though, you at least have him as the primary position as the most likely. And then, hey, you get a bonus if he does something else. But he's going to be a really big contributor early on, and you never know. We might get someone to help him out who has some chemistry with him. Of course, I don't know. This is a live mock draft. But continuing on at pick number 5 for the Rams, left tackle to me is the way to address the biggest issue on this team for the long run. Larry Jackson's on a 1-year contract. So I do think that continuing to protect the quarterback is super crucial. The question is, do you think the quarterback needs to be replaced after this year because poor Stafford's getting beaten up? I think that's certainly something you can consider, is going after a quarterback. And I think within these 3 picks, we will be looking at one. But for now, I'm going to be looking at offensive tackle. And I love Kelvin Banks. I have my issues with his leverage. The dude ends up on the ground a lot of times. But someone who I'm going to give credit to, who has just not gotten, he's starting to get a lot of credit, but He's someone who I really, really liked in the pre-draft process, but he just never put it together. He looked great. He had all the technique, but it just didn't end up meshing together. It's meshing this year. He's only allowed one pressure all year long. He's been fantastic, and he's been reliable, and he's athletic. He's a baller. It's Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Now, you can look for yourself. Well, first off, I mean, again, PFF grades aren't everything, but something I do love to see from my players is progression year after year after year, and consistency as well. And, this guy is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, even 10 pressures last year, that's not even bad. So it's honestly really quite good. But I'm going to be going Josh Simmons here. I do think that the quality of his play deserves more recognition. And if it continues to be the way that he is right now, he deserves to be a top 5 pick. But he's getting his reevaluation soon. I want to see how he plays versus Oregon this week. That's the big game for me. Because Oregon has some talented defensive linemen. We'll see how that goes. Like the whole entire Ohio State team. This is a big week, in my opinion. Pick number 6, though, for Carolina. A lot of really, really talented players in this group. You could technically move back, acquire some extra draft capital. But again, the question always is, like, who's going to trade up and who's worth trading up for? I don't think there's enough talent to trade up for. And you can talk about wide receiver here. I think Luther Burden is a very talented option. I mean, if Travis Hunter were here, we're going Travis Hunter, right? That's going to be a perfect Deontay Johnson replacement. However, I know that if I want to wait to round 2, pick 37, at the worst, I can end up getting Ty Felton, Ricky White, or where the hell is Deion Burton? He's literally right where my mouse was. Like, that's the perfect guy to fit into that role. We'll have one there. You know who we won't have? And something this team has been like freaking Frankensteining for quite a while now is a quality edge rusher. And I know that this player, he had a rough start to the year, but not only have I seen him grow to the point where I feel comfortable taking him in the first, I've seen him flourish, and that's Abdul Carter. It's someone who, like, he's in a whole entire new body, in a whole entire new position, and he has to compete with some very, very talented players, and his best game is versus the best talent, and yeah, it sucks. He didn't get to dominate Wyatt Milam. That sucks, but that's his first game as an edge rusher in a new body and a new frame. I see him getting more and more comfortable. And he's due for a reevaluation. And honestly, I owe it to him. So we'll keep that in mind. But Abdul Carter, absolute monster, well deserving of this pick. We'll see how he ends up feasting this week on the USC O-line. Oh, that's going to be insane. But getting yourself a quality edge rusher with unbelievable untapped potential and still production on the field, that's how you can end up building a really strong cornerstone piece. Of course, it would be nice if you had Burns still, but Brian Burns hasn't really been worth $30 million a year yet, so maybe you'll end up netting positive. Who knows? Pick number 7 for the Tennessee Titans. There's a couple routes you can go here. You can go after the wide receiver route because DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out. Tyler Boyd. Like, there's certainly contingency plans where you can have there. I am starting to get really focused on that right tackle spot, though. We all know Nicholas Petit-Ferrer's cheeks. Let's not dance around the topic. And in this class, I have plenty of concerns at that right tackle spot to where I feel pretty comfortable sticking and picking here. And Cam Williams is someone who I owe a grade. And granted, his worst performance is against the team that I think would be the most translatable. But, I mean, if the people who I trust at the moment have him going in the top 5, I should be able to feel confident, especially in a class where right tackle is very sparse. For true right tackles, like Emory Jones, I love this brother to death. He has short arms too. He could potentially be a guard. Blake Miller has his issues. Like all these tackles, even a Johnny Cornelius, who I adore, he's still somebody that you're taking him in the 3rd round because you don't even know if he could truly start at the moment, but he's a really good filler. People are talking about Cam Williams as something special. Again, I'm not going to fully vouch for it. However, if I owe you guys something that at least represents a generalized community view with my twist on it. And right tackle for the Titans is a big issue. And you're getting yourself a quality player that people have very, very strong beliefs in. And I love O-line. So you're not going to get one probably in round 2. I think it's a smart move. Pick number 8 for the Miami Dolphins. I'm rushing this to the podium. Even though there's some really intriguing options here, do you want to potentially move off Tua? I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, you have 2 third-round picks. That's where you can take someone to compete. Or if someone really good falls to 40, that's where you can justify it. But I'm looking at Mason Graham and Malachi Starks here. And let's get someone to replace that defense interior spot where Wilkins left. And Malachi Starks is far from a bad option. But defensive backs, there's a good amount of them that you can end up sniping in this draft, in my opinion. Maybe not too many guys at the top at the quality of Malachi Starks, but I think there's more quality defensive interiors, or there's less quality defensive interiors you can get at 99 and 100 as actual defensive backs. So I feel like I'd feel a bit more comfortable then and there. For the Jets at number 9, I feel pretty confident in the idea of potentially wanting to move out of this spot. I have Jaylen Moro right here, who could be a prime target if Rodgers wants to hang up the cleats. They're having this struggle bus time right now, but we'll see how it goes post-Saleh era. I'm looking at the Raiders right here, and I'm going to get a QB for the Raiders most likely. I mean, like, that seems like the smart move. If Jaylen Moro is there, who has been, even in the loss to Vanderbilt, he has been extremely consistent, doing a great job, and he's developed so much. Ball placement still needs to be worked on, but it's getting better than it was before. That's someone who has the upside of being a top pick. So that's going to be the pick for me if I'm there at the Raiders pick. I don't like that if I'm the Giants. I'm desperate for a QB. You know what? Let's make the jump. Let's go New York to New York, baby. The New York Giants are going to make a move up here. And what's the problem with being aggressive? They're trying to do it last year. They're going to do it this year. And it's going to take maybe we're going to toss them some 2026 capital. Y'all know the deal. I don't like giving up second-round picks in this. And I don't think the Jets need to worry about that either. I feel like top-end position-wise, they're doing a good job. But regardless, for the Giants, toss in a future third here as well, and I think this deal goes in a heartbeat. So the Giants move up and select Jaylen Moro. I think it's a smart move. Pick number 10 for the Vegas Raiders. We're hopping on the Genty train. I debated taking him at 4. Just not many teams right here that would be looking to get a quality running back, and so we end up letting him fall to the Raiders. There's not many quarterbacks I believe in the first round. Milroe is the one with the most potential. I love Ward. Love him. He's technically graded higher than Milroe, but Milroe is younger. He's a redshirt junior versus I believe a redshirt senior. So got a year on you. He's only a senior. Okay, well I digress with that. So regardless of the fact, the age didn't even factor in for me. Milroe is just a game-changing athlete. Like that, it's ridiculous. If he were 10% less athletic, I'd go Cam Ward. But I wouldn't take Jaylen Milroe then at that point. So I digress. Let's get back to it. Number 11 for the Arizona Cardinals. Let's go after some edge rushing talent. But I mean, I do like the idea of going Aziru Waku in the second round. But let's not play games here. Let's actually do the right thing. You can go after James Pierce, but I am far more on the hype train. Not even a hype train, though, because I believed in this guy. I know everybody who I respect, who understands really good edge talent, they believe in this guy as well. It's Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. He is an edge rusher, though. We're not using him as a linebacker. He's my number 5 player, but will be soon my number 4. Again, waiting for Purdue All-22 tape to pop out. Pick number 12 for the Indianapolis Colts. Corner is going to be the best move for this team. There's no bones about it. No bones about it. But I do feel like I could feel comfortable moving down in this situation. That being said, I did actually end up reevaluating quite a few of the corners, and I do feel a little bit less comfortable, about some of them. And again, PFF, man, please put in Davison Igbinison, I'm forgetting how to pronounce his name properly. Regardless, I'm going to not play games. Let's go Ben Morrison. The Niners have 3 dudes who are up for a contract in their corner core. I don't want to take the risk of them sniping Ben Morrison. At pick 13 for the Niners, you have Kelvin Banks here. It's kind of hard to say no at this point, but I really do. I've fallen in love with the idea that the Niners spend high-end picks on defense, like defensive edge rusher specifically. If they're sitting here and they need an edge and they have a high pick and there's a quality edge here, I'm going to believe that they're going to go edge. And I'm going to stick to the pick I did earlier this week. It's Princey Umamielen. This guy has been fantastic, by the way. And screw these grades. You know what? Screw them. Watch the games, guys. Don't look at grades. I use them when I talk just because it helps paint a picture. Like, first off, look at the pass rush win rate. Look at the run stop rate. This is worth a top 10 pick. And you know what? If he goes in the top 10, I'm not going to be surprised. He's one of those guys who I have a ton of faith in. And again, he's due for a reevaluation, but he already was someone who I was having in my top of the edge rusher group. And I think he's worth it. This is a team that's been Frankensteining that edge 2 position. Fix it, fill it, forget about it. Pick number 14 for the New York Jets. This is a team that I could see going after a right tackle. But, you got Kelvin Banks here. What's the problem with potentially going after him? It's a kind of a weird thing to think about, but I mean, why? What's the risk of going after Kelvin Banks, right? You're going to get yourself a quality tackle here. And Olu Fashanu has been struggling, but Kelvin Banks, I never took to be someone who is still developing in terms of technique besides leverage. Leverage is just his issue. He just falls over. That's his one big problem. And Fashanu has had significantly worse games. Remember, he had that 6 pressure game versus Ohio State last year. So it's not a surprise to me that when you put him out of position, he's going to struggle. I think Kelvin Banks at this point, especially in the eyes of the NFL, will be viewed extremely, extremely highly as a potential right tackle candidate. Of course, if you are the Jets, you could also move back with a team like the Bears that would be perfectly happy moving up and taking Kelvin Banks if you want to address tight end, receiver, etc. And you know what? I haven't been very aggressive with the Bears in a hot minute. Let's get aggressive with them. They have 2 second-round picks. I feel like this is a prime opportunity, and it took pick 120 roughly to get between these 2 picks. I'm going to look at pick 81 and then give back maybe pick 110. I feel like that's fair. You can talk about basically moving up a noticeable amount, and again, feel free to toss in some extra compensatory draft picks in there if you would like. But the Bears are moving up to get themselves either a tackle or a guard here in Kelvin Banks. Get yourself a quality a quality player in the trenches. Don't overthink it. When you got someone like Kelvin Banks there, like for me, I'm not uber high on Kelvin Banks. However, I am very much aware of how much of an upgrade he is over the offensive talent that you have. Sometimes you just pay a little bit of a premium in order to get that, and I think that's perfectly fine. At pick number 15 for the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 positions I'm looking at. I'm looking at edge rusher. I'm looking at tight end. Those are the 2 I think are the biggies. And looking at the guys who are available, James Pierce is not out of the equation. You're looking at a Fangio-style defense. I think that getting someone who could be an Andrew Van Ginkel style is far from a bad decision. And he's been getting very underrated. I mean, first off, I ended up commenting in the offseason how underrated he was as a run defender. Even though he's 242, and some people don't believe he can handle NFL power NFL power in terms of the run game. I respect that. He's 240 pounds, right? I mean, he's 243. He gained a pound. Crazy. But I honestly think that what I had issues with when it came to James Pierce's game had nothing to do with his ability to stop the run. It had to do with him putting everything together as a pass rusher. And this year started out far lower than 15.5%. That's still a really respectable number. You're not going to get a Latu at this point. But I also love the fact that Pierce is an instant system fit. And you can get somebody who is extremely talented, who is still experienced, but he is also still young. And to me, that's worth it. Let's go James Pierce there. Pick number 16 for the New Orleans Saints. You got T-Mac here, and I think that's a brilliant idea. I really do. And there's a lot of teams that could use a T-Mac. Remember when I was talking about Malachi Starks? How there's some guys in the 3rd round, like the drop-off isn't necessarily as huge. Wide receiver, the drop-off significantly less. I think there's a lot of quality receivers in this class that even I don't have. Out of my top 57 receivers I had at the start of the year, there's still plenty of guys who could have easily been higher on that, and I've even added some. So I think Malachi Starks is awesome, and I don't think you can let him slip past 16. At pick 17 for the New York Jets, we waited, and now we can kind of enjoy the fruits of our labor. We're going to be going tight end here with Colston Loveland. Get yourself a top-end weapon. So not only is Colston Loveland, I got to just take a moment here, not only is Colston Loveland a really good just route runner, he's an underrated blocker, but he is unbelievably versatile. You want someone to replace Mike Williams? Colston Loveland can do that. You want someone to be an elite tight end? Colston Loveland can do that. He is somebody who's just very, very consistent. Guys, have you seen the amount of passing yards that Michigan has? How the hell does this guy get 2.69 yards per not yards per route run? It's ridiculous. This team passes for like 30 yards a game. This dude's still averaging, like, he's probably getting like 90%. In actuality, I think he's over 50% of all their passing yards. This guy's an absolute baller, well deserving the 17th overall pick. Pick number 18 for the Green Bay Packers. A lot of good choices here. And honestly, it's hard to say no to Kenneth Grant, but it's even harder to say no to somebody who is at a valuable position that is just uber consistent. And I love this pick for Green Bay. It's one that I've been doing for a minute. I'm sticking to it. He got reevaluated today, and he actually ended up, I had some things shifting around, but ended up being the exact same grade. It's Denzel Burke. He is just old reliable. There's like nothing that's really wrong with him necessarily. And like, yeah, sometimes my biggest issue from when I was watching him is like, first off, sometimes he gets a little overzealous when he's doing some run pursuit, especially when he's on a blitz. Sometimes it takes him a second to process, like, what the hell just happened. But besides that, maybe on in-breaking routes, he just takes too harsh of an angle, and then, potentially that could lead to some separation. But I feel like that's something you could fix with Jair Alexander in one offseason. Like, the issues are so tweakable that I wouldn't be surprised if Denzel Burke goes top 10. He's a real quality corner. But at pick 19 for the Los Angeles Chargers, a match made in heaven. You got Kenneth Grant here. And again, you got some receivers falling. And to be fair, this past year, based on the guys who have ended up coming out, we're seeing a ton of superstars from the first round. Like, they could push the value of these guys up. But you also have to see the quality of receiver in this class. Like, there are a lot of real quality receivers that never get respect. So it is possible for Kenneth Grant to go here and go above these guys, because Kenneth Grant finally is turning it on. I mean, it took him a minute, but he was down in the 5 percentiles. Now look at him. He's doing a great job bouncing back and developing. He's just a player with a really great motor, unbelievable athlete, and he's, of course, going to the perfect system fit. Pick number 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I find it hard not to go Tetairoa McMillan. Like, at the end of the day, give your quarterback, whoever that is, a reliable option that I don't see T-Mac slouching in terms of his effort. I don't think he's a great route runner, but you don't necessarily draft Tetairoa McMillan dreaming that you're going to get a route runner. Like, he's great after the catch. He's great in terms of the contested catch. And we're seeing with George Pickens, minus the attitude and like the effort problems, like, that is what's working in our offense. So why not double down? T-Mac, it is. I know the idea, like, let's wait to the second round, or second round beyond. Like, I'm the number one proponent for saying, hey, trust your scouts, because we snipe really good players. At pick 20, it's a different threshold. We're not at pick 13 anymore. We're at pick 20. So, and with all the guys on the board, I think it's time. Pick number 21 for the Seattle Seahawks. I definitely think that with the quality of offensive linemen dropping off, so to speak, we need to be able to emphasize going after them. And Emory Jones Jr. is a perfect fit. First off, LSU, you already got, it is Anthony Bradford. You got Anthony Bradford on your squad. So you're already having somebody on your roster that you've shown affinity for that style, for that system, and for that ferocity as well. Emory Jones brings that same tenacity that Bradford did as a run blocker, but he has actually a bit more skill as a pass blocker. That right tackle spot is atrocious for the long run, and I am genuinely concerned for it. So at least Emory Jones at pick 21 is damn worth it. At pick 22 for the Broncos, there's two routes you can go here. You can go the Luther Burden route, and I'm not going to fully blame you. I think getting more and more weapons for your quarterback is an awesome idea. But Garrett Bowles is up for a contract. I don't think he's coming back. Ariante Urzuri would be a real quality selection here. You can't go wrong, though. I mean, if you go Luther Burden and get Bo Nix, someone who's a quick guy, like quick catch, and then take it to the house, that is something that works in that offense. I'm going to do it. You know what? Let's do it. Luther Burden's too good to pass on at this moment. I love going after offensive line all I can, but Luther Burden's an absolute monster, well deserving of this. At 23 for the Dallas Cowboys, we're looking at some potential stars on the table like Quinshon Judkins that could really help out the team. But I also know that this team, based on recent memory, does not overvalue that running back position. Maybe they should, but they're not. I'm going to go Isaiah Bond here. Wide receiver out of Texas. He's a deep burner. He's an absolute baller. Most importantly, he's going to be a damn good contributor, and he can play on the boundary as well. So you're not getting someone who's like a guaranteed slot. I love that about him. At pick 24 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm seeing a couple real quality players here. Arianti Urzuri is a big one, but you also end up looking at edge rush. You got Overton in here. You got even Michael Williams. Like, there are certainly some players that are worth moving up for. Cam Ward as well. And, I do think that some teams should get a little bit aggressive for Cam Ward, but at this point, you could see him slipping a little bit more than maybe you'd think. So there's certainly some desire for Cam Ward here, but I do think this is a prime opportunity to move back. You got edge rusher that you could probably target a little bit down the board, and you don't need to be fair. I do think that if you end up, you could actually stick and pick here, but it's just, the guy who I think fits the best is Azir Waku. That's someone who I'd want to trade back for, not stick and pick. So, who's worth sticking and picking for? I'm going to look at Arianti Urzuri here. And is there any team that I think should be desperate for Arianti Urzuri? You bet your ass. And one of them is the Baltimore Ravens. You could end up having a very short-range trade here. You also have Quinshon Judkins on the board, where there are teams, technically like the Texans, who could want to move up. But not only that, the Texans could move up for a defensive interior because we've already taken a couple. And I could see the Bills getting very excited about some defensive interior help. I could see a couple of the teams getting excited about it. I actually like the idea. Let's move up with the Texans. Let's get aggressive. That's what they've done before in the past. Let's do it again. The Texans are going to make a move up right here. And, we'll give them a little bit of a homie discount. Maybe you can send a future pick here, but I'll send pick 194 and we'll leave it at that. I feel like a third round pick. Well, it's 6 spots. We'll do 131. Yeah, I feel like that. I was about to absolutely screw the Texans. I feel like that's fair. Give the Buccaneers an extra pick here because quantity is going to be pretty helpful for the Bucs. But we let the Texans move up, and you might say well, we moved up. Are you going to be looking at defensive interior? You bet your ass I will. And you might say, hey, you could have waited, saved yourself a 4th round pick, and ended up getting possibly Tyreek Williams, Derek Harmon. But I have my eyes set on bigger fish. This guy's been an absolute monster this year. Walter Nolan, he's up to 305 pounds, and he's gotten better and better and better. And in his biggest test this past week, he performed his best. 7 pressures, 5 defensive stops versus South Carolina. South Carolina is no slouch of a squad. I have a lot of respect for Walter Nolan, and he has the explosiveness and the tenacity that I would want in the first round. And I love Tyreek Williams, but I think that Walter Nolan's ceiling is significantly higher, especially even in his short-term impact. So at pick number 25 for the Bills would have been my dark horse pick for them right there. But I'm going to look potentially at wide receiver because I do think that's a perfectly fine position to go after Emeka Egbuka. He's done a phenomenal job, caught 3 touchdowns this past week. He's very, 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 very talented. But I also think that edge rusher is going to be a position that's arguably even more valuable to this team. I'll go after receiver. I think that they should be a little bit more focused on the receiving room. Again, based on recent trends, early receivers have actually paid big dividends. I think Emeka Egbuka could certainly do that. At pick 26 for the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to be going after offensive tackle here, Arianti Urzuri, because he's going to be the long-term answer for Ronnie Stanley and also the short-term guard, because I think that's his best possible outcome. Just don't overthink it. Get yourself a real quality player. For the Falcons at pick 27, edge rusher, super duper key. I don't think LT Overton's going to be a bad choice here. People love him to death. I mean, obviously, you look at that pass rush win rate, anything above 15% is respectable, right? Unfortunately, you got guys like Michael Williams, who's, to be fair, this past week ended up really boosting his ratings. But I'm actually looking at Quinshon Judkins right here, and I know there's a couple teams that should certainly be in the mood to potentially move up. And same thing with Cam Ward. I mean, it is kind of douchey for these quarterbacks to be slipping so much to this degree. And looking at the guys who could move up for a quarterback, we could see the Raiders 100% make a move up. The Jets technically as well. This is just too far of a position to move up to. And wide receiver wise, no one's worth taking at this point. Let's go after that edge rusher and let's get yourself a quality one in LT Overton. Someone I do not have an official grade on at the moment, but he's been popping off every single week for the most part. And That's just a quality player that you should definitely be adding at a quality position. Pick 28 for the Lions. I'm not going to overthink this too much. LT Overton would have been nice. I'm going to be going after Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. Just continue solidifying the offensive line. Make a strength a strength. Don't overthink it. Pick 29 for the Washington Commanders. Oof. We missing anybody key for this team? Michael Williams could be a fun one, but I honestly don't think that his play has warranted a first round grade. I'm actually looking at Tacario Davis here. Like, Tacario Davis, to me, I ended up regrading him today. He ended up falling a noticeable amount. Not like a noticeable amount, but the change of direction issue is super duper. It's very present. And I honestly thought his ball skills have gotten a little bit worse this year, which sucks because you guys know me. I was a big guy on Prysock and Davis. Both of them are actually graded in, I believe, the 72 range at the moment, where Prysock was at, I think, 78 and Davis was at around 75. So both of them took a noticeable drop there. But looking at other positions I could see for this team, because, again, corner is super duper key. Edge rusher, I just don't know if I see the value. I just don't. Personally, I don't see the value at this point. This is a trade out spot. I feel comfortable with the Commanders getting more and more draft capital and allowing a team to move up and get their star quarterback, and that is Cam Ward. And I ended up sticking and picking with the Raiders for Ashton Jeanty, and this is a team that's very, very gritty. I actually really like the prospect of the Las Vegas Raiders making a move up here. And I think the Commanders should be focused more on future draft capital anyways. This can take a future third to move up here. Maybe you can end up squeezing like 184 because I see there's a nice little gap right there. You get 184 or 42 and a next year third round pick to move up. And maybe you could make it a second round pick. Who gives a shit? We're going to be going after Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. This is at that end of the range where you start feeling comfortable taking those shots on those fringe quarterbacks that maybe don't have the elite dynamicism of a Jaylen Moro, but they do have amazing arm talent with really good mobility. Pick number 30 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have still the opportunity to go after a real quality edge rusher here, and I don't think I could ignore it. I think Michael Williams might have too good of a ceiling to pass on, and so I will be drafting him. At pick 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs, you can go after offensive line here. I don't think I'd blame you if you went Donovan Jackson, a very high-quality player. But I also love the idea of defensive interior with Tyleik Williams. Derek Harmon, hard to count him out. This dude's been an absolute freak show. It's someone who I've really liked since Michigan State even. But Tyleik Williams is just consistent. And I think that I have a theory, basically, that Ohio State's run or pass rush training, essentially, for their defensive interiors, not good. And I think that leaves a lot untapped that Chris Jones could end up securing. So we're going to go after Tyleik Williams there. At pick number 32 for the Minnesota Vikings, Quinshon's here. Let's not pass on him. This team definitely could use the help. I know trading back could really assist us, but I don't want to play games. I know that the Browns are lurking. I think the Browns could be a very, very dangerous team to move up for Quinshon Judkins. So let's not play games. Quinshon Judkins going to be the selection there at pick 32. That's going to be the draft. Rounds 2 and 3 are tomorrow, though, so stay tuned for that. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.